Hello friends, do you love tea and natural wellness products as much as I do? I've partnered with Positively Tea and Positively Botanicals, and I can honestly say I drink their organic loose leaf tea almost every day, and I love it. From organic teas to natural remedies, they offer high-quality products that support a healthy, mindful lifestyle. When you shop through my affiliate link, you not only discover amazing products for yourself, but you also help support the podcast. Visit the link in the show notes to explore their selections today. And for you coffee lovers, they have you covered as well. Treat yourself, support the show, and keep connecting with the natural world. Hello friends, and welcome back to the Nature Wanderer. I'm your host Paul, and this is a place where we slow down, step outside the noise, and reconnect with the natural world. One story, one sound, and one discovery at a time. Whether we're exploring the hidden lives of wildlife, unpacking the science behind what we see outdoors, or just taking a moment to breathe it in, this is your space to wander. So wherever you are, take a step outside, at least in your mind, and let's wander. So welcome today to Majors Park in East Aurora. I've done a few podcasts here before. Majors Park is a nice little park just outside of the village of East Aurora, New York. I like coming here every once in a while. And it's actually in two sections, this park. This is the developed section where they put a trail going through, and it's really nice, but there's a creek that goes through the middle of the park, and the other section you actually have to enter on another road. It's not connected, the two sections aren't connected by a bridge at all. Now what I want to talk about today is something that's been kind of invading my house lately, and maybe it's been invading yours. Have you had visitors in your house lately? And I'm not talking about the humankind. Lately, there's been something creeping and crawling and quietly stinking its way into our homes. And it's not just me. I've talked to friends of mine, and they seem to have the same problem. Maybe you've seen these guys clinging to your window screens, buzzing lazily around a lamp, or maybe they've been appearing out of nowhere, like tiny armored hitchhikers. What I'm talking about, stink bugs. Yeah, the stink bugs. They've been everywhere this year. Like I said, I've been talking to friends, and when you start talking about stink bugs, they're like, oh yeah, I've got so many of them in my house. And it seems like it's more than usual. I don't know, I never used to get very many when I lived out in Arcade, and now that I live in a more residential area, I seem to be getting more of them. I don't know if it's the location or I don't know. But anyhow, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Now, if you're like most people, your first reaction to these uninvited guests is probably something like, why are there so many? And how do I make them go away? Make them all go away. Well, today we're going to pause before we grab the paper towel or the vacuum cleaner to suck them up. Yeah, because as always in nature, there's a deeper story hiding beneath the surface. And yes, you know me, I'm always all about nature and protecting even the things in nature that we don't really like, that we think are maybe disgusting. But hey, nature is out there, and we need to live with it, whether we like it or not. I want to talk a little bit about these interesting little bugs that we find in their house because they're really actually very interesting. They're survivalists. They have all these adaptations. And they have a very clever chemical defense system. So today we're going to step into the curious world of stink bugs. And by the end of this episode, you might just see these little invaders in a completely different light. At least I hope so. So, what exactly is a stink bug? Well, let's start at the beginning. When most people say stink bug, they're talking about one particular member of the family. You see, the stink bug, the term actually covers a lot of different bugs. There's several different subspecies of stink bug, but the one that most people are talking about is the one that's in their houses, which is the brown marmorated stink bug. Its scientific name is Heliomorpha halis. And it originally came from East Asia, places like China, Japan, and Korea. But over the years, actually over the last few decades, it's become a globe-trotting hitchhiker, spreading across North America and Europe. Now, physically, the stink bugs are pretty distinctive. They have a shield-shaped body. It's really interesting. It looks like the shields on the highway markers in the U.S. So yeah, they have that shield-shaped body. They're usually about a ½ inch up to 3/4 of an inch long. They have a mottled brown or gray coloration that works like natural camouflage. So they blend in really well with their surroundings. And if you look closely, subtle white bands are on their antenna and their abdomen. Now, they're not fast. They're not particularly graceful either. If you watch them fly, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about here. And they're definitely not winning any awards for elegance, especially in flight. What they lack in speed and elegance, they make up for in defense strategy. Now, the stink bugs actually belong to a larger group of insects called the Pentantamidae, and that name comes from the Greek word for 5 sections, referring to the segmented shape of their bodies. But more importantly, this entire family shares one very special trait, and that's the ability to produce a strong defensive odor, which is where the name stink bug comes from. Now, the native stink bugs, yeah, we do have native ones. They're all not invaders from Asia. No, there are native stink bugs. They include the green stink bug. There's the brown stink bug. Not the brown marmorated, that's the invader. That's the invasive species. But we do have an actual native brown stink bug. And then there's the rough stink bug as well. And then the spines soldier bug. Okay, spine soldier bug. Doesn't have the name stink in there, but yeah, they're actually part of the family. They are a stink bug, and they are native to the U.S. Now, all of these native species are rarely in our houses. Yeah, they rarely invade our houses like the marmorated brown stink bug. All right, so let's turn you into a stink bug detective here for a minute, because not all stink bugs are the same. And there's actually one of them, the brown marmorated stink bug, the one that's been sneaking into our homes and causing most of the trouble. Okay, they're the ones who we always see. So how do you tell the marmorated brown stink bug, or I should say, sorry, the brown marmorated stink bug. How do you tell them apart from a native brown stink bug or some of these other native stink bugs? Well, that's actually pretty easy. Here's where the detective part comes in. Start with the antenna. This is your best clue. The brown marmorated stink bug has distinctive white bands on the antenna. They're almost like rings wrapped around the antenna. If you see those light stripes, you're on the right track. Next, take a look at the edges of its abdomen. The sides that stick out just beyond the wings, you'll notice a sort of alternating light and dark pattern here. Almost like a, subtle checkerboard running along the edge. And then there's the overall look. Kind of mottled, marbled brown, not clean, not uniform, more like it's been dabbed with different shades of earth tones to help it disappear against the bark. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Many of our native stink bugs, like the green stink bug, don't have those bold antenna bands. They're often more uniform in color, sometimes bright green, and they tend to stay outdoors where they belong. So, if you're finding them inside your home, clustering on walls, showing up around windows in the fall, chances are you're dealing with the brown marmorated stink bug. And just like that, you've gone from, what is that thing, to someone who can read the details. In nature, yeah, the clues are always there. You just have to know where to look. So that's how you tell the brown marmorated stink bug from the native species. And I'll almost guarantee those are the ones you're seeing in your house. Now, why stink bug? I mean, why'd they get that name? Do they really smell that bad? Yes, they can. Why do they smell? Well, when a stink bug feels threatened or crushed, so please don't step on them, or even just handled roughly, I mean, I've handled them before, but I'm always very gentle. Yeah, I usually pick them up with my hand and I'll take them outside and I'll release them out there. So if you handle them too roughly, or like I said, if they feel threatened or crushed, that's when it releases this chemical cocktail from the glands in its thorax. Now, this is a classic example of a natural survival tactic known as chemical defense. And a lot of animals use it. Think of a skunk. They keep the predators away by spraying. Have you ever been sprayed by a skunk? Yeah, you don't want to get near them. But that smell on the stink bug serves as a simple, powerful purpose. It's basically telling all the predators, hey, don't eat me. It's that simple. To predators like birds, lizards, or small mammals, that sense is a warning sign. And once they experience it, they usually remember it. If you've ever smelled a stink bug, you probably remember it. And you always avoid them now. So, from an evolutionary standpoint, it's actually brilliant. Yeah, there's no need to run away fast, no need for speed. There's no need for venom. Just a tiny chemical signal that says, hey, bad idea to annoy me, to eat me, to come close to me. Now, the smell actually comes primarily from aldehydes, which are organic compounds that are also found in things like herbs and spices. They're just arranged here in a much less appetizing way than in herbs and spices. Now, the main culprits include what's called trans-2-decenol, which has a sharp, oily, slightly herbal smell to it. It's really not that bad a smell. And then there's the trans-2-octanol, which has more of a green, almost grassy but with a harsh edge to it. On their own, yeah, they're really not necessarily awful. They smell like nature. But together, they form that unmistakable, something's wrong here smell that lingers in the air like an uninvited guest. So these are the chemicals that create that sharp, lingering odor that, well, I've had friends describe it as cilantro gone rogue or burnt rubber. I always think of it as a musty chemical tang that just won't leave the room. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning of the podcast, they seem to be everywhere this year. And I mean, there's been other years where I've noticed a lot of them, but this year it just seemed to be finding them everywhere in my house. It's incredible, and like I said, a lot of friends have noticed the same thing. So why are they everywhere right now? I mean, why does it feel like they've suddenly taken over our houses? Well, there's a few key reasons for this. First of all, seasonal behavior. As the temperatures drop, stink bugs start looking for places to overwinter. That's why we usually see them in the fall. But we also see them a lot during the spring because they start coming out of their hiding places ready to get back outdoors. Or sometimes they're just happy being inside with us. So as the temperatures drop, or sometimes in the spring as it starts to warm up a little bit, stink bugs start looking for those places to overwinter, or they start coming out of those hiding places that they did overwinter in. And unfortunately, yeah, our houses look like luxury resorts to them. Warm walls, dry shelter, plenty of hiding spaces for them. They can actually squeeze through tiny cracks around the windows, doors, the siding, your vents. And once they get inside, well, they go into a kind of low energy state called diapause. So all winter long, they're in this diapause. And then in the spring, when it starts to warm up more outdoors, they start coming out of those hiding places. And that's why we're seeing them now. But you also get to see them a lot during the fall. Now, another reason that we see a lot of them lately is because, well, there's a lack of natural predators. I mean, back in their native habitat in Asia, their population was kept in check by the predators, the parasites. But here, well, they have fewer natural enemies. That's one reason invasive species, like the brown marmorated stink bug, can actually explode in numbers. Now, the third reason is weather patterns. If you have mild winters and warm growing seasons, this can actually boost their survival rates. More survivors means more breeding, which means, that's right, more bugs on our windows, in our homes. Nature doesn't do randomness, it does patterns. And stink bugs, well, they're actually simply riding the wave. And great weather, bigger populations. So those are the three main reasons that we suddenly seem to be seeing them everywhere. We have the bigger populations of them. And so you may be thinking, well, let's get rid of them. I mean, what is their role in nature? What's their purpose? I always hate when people ask me that. Like, what's the purpose of a bee? What's the purpose of a... They're just part of the ecosystem. They're part of nature. Here's where things actually get interesting, because even though they can feel like they're pests, stink bugs are still part of the ecological web. Most stink bugs are plant feeders, which is not a good thing when it comes to farmers, gardeners. Yeah, they use a specialized mouth part, kind of like a tiny straw, and they use that to pierce fruits, suck the plant juices out of it, and they feed on seeds also. If you don't have the seeds, you don't get the plants growing. If you're sucking all the nutrients out of the plant dies. This can damage crops like apples, peaches, corn, soybeans. Yeah, a lot of farmers do not like the stink bugs because of this, and I totally get it. I mean, farmers not exactly fans. But in nature, they're also food for certain predators. They're part of the nutrient cycle. And they're indicators of ecosystem shifts. So, even though stink bugs seem like villains to us and we don't want them, some species are actually predatory, feeding on other insects, acting as natural pest control. I know, it's complicated. A love-hate relationship with these guys. I seem to find that a lot in nature. But, you know, nature loves complexity. Even the smelly characters, like the stink bug, have a role to play in nature. So remember that. Let's be honest. I know most of us meet stink bugs not in a forest, but in our living rooms, on a curtain, near a lamp, buzzing like confused little drones. And here's the thing. They're not dangerous. They don't bite. Well, at least not meaningfully. They don't spread disease. They're more of a nuisance than a threat. So seeing them up on the wall, in your bedroom, on a lampshade, yeah, they're a nuisance, but they're not a threat to you. They're not going to harm you. Keep that in mind. But there's always that smell. Yeah, I know. That's where the drama comes in. Now, if you want some pro tips, if you need to remove one, don't crush it, okay? I know a lot of people, they see a bug and they step on it. Don't do it. Yeah. Remember, you crush them, that's when they release that stink. Gently, and I'm going to repeat that, gently. Yeah, gently trap it and release it outside. Like I said, I just cup it in my hand. I actually have a spider catcher in my house, the long-handled thing with these little bristles on the end, and you squeeze this trigger and you put the thing over the spider, and when you release the trigger, it collapses down on them. It doesn't harm them. I use those sometimes, I use that sometimes for capturing stink bugs as well. But you have to do it slow. You can use a vacuum. I would advise, if you do, empty it later outside, trust me, okay? Sucking them through a vacuum cleaner hose, that's not going to be good because it scares them. It frightens them. And they go into defense mode. And that's when they spray. And once that scent is released, it can linger. So be careful when you capture them and release them. Don't do it aggressively. Now I want to talk real brief about invasive species because the brown marmorated stink bug is a classic example of an invasive species. It likely arrived in North America through shipping containers, which is where a lot of insects come from. Tucked away in the cargo of a ship, completely unnoticed. And from there, when that cargo is unloaded, they're released into the environment in the U.S. And they spread, state by state, season by season. This is one of the defining ecological stories of our time. Yeah, species moving beyond their native ranges because we ship from place to place now, over the ocean. They couldn't fly across the ocean. Instead, they hitchhiked across the ocean. That's why I kept calling them hitchhikers in the beginning. That's what they do. Sometimes these animals, any invasive species that comes from another country, they are uninvited, but hey, we brought them here. They will thrive in ways we didn't expect. And sometimes, well, they become part of our daily lives, like the stink bug. Now, as you know me, I like all animals. I like all parts of nature, even the things that most people don't, even the things that I used to not like when I was a kid. But I've always learned the more you learn about something, the more you understand it and the less afraid you are. I remember a song, I don't even remember what group it was or what song it was, but there was a line in there, we kill what we don't understand. And it's true. You know, if we don't understand something, we're afraid of it. We fear it. Maybe that was the line. We fear what we don't understand, which usually ends up being we kill them in the long run. But yeah, we fear what we don't understand. So if you understand something, like I said, they're harmless to us, then you might start appreciating them, or at least not being so afraid of them. Yeah, it's easy. It's so easy to label something as annoying, to swat it away, to wish it didn't exist. But when we slow down and really look, even something as small and smelly as a stink bug carries a story. I mean, a story of survival, of adaptation, of a species navigating a changing world just like we are. They don't know they're invasive. They're just, well, living. They're trying to survive. They're responding to warmth, to shelter, to opportunity. That's why they're in their houses. And maybe there's something there for us to learn. A reminder that nature isn't always tidy or convenient or pleasant, but it's always fascinating. At least that's the way I look at it. So the next time you see a stink bug on your window, pause for just a moment. Take a closer look. Notice the pattern on its back, the slow, deliberate movement, the quiet presence, and maybe, just maybe, you'll see not a pest. At least I hope that's what you're going to start seeing now. Just look at him as a tiny traveler, finding its way into a world that's constantly shifting, finding its way, well, into our homes. So start appreciating them and start observing them and start acknowledging that they're there and discover them, explore them. I'd like to thank you for wandering with me today. As usual, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow or subscribe so you don't miss our next journey. And if you know someone who could use a little more nature in their life, who doesn't? Share the podcast with them. Don't forget to visit the show notes for additional information about the Nature Wanderer and this episode. Until next time, get outside when you can, stay curious, and keep exploring the nature around you. Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hey there, fellow nature wanderers. If you're like me, you love spending time outdoors, breathing in that fresh air and connecting with the natural world. But at home, have you ever thought about what's in the products you use every single day? That's why I'm excited to share Apple Valley Natural Soap with you. Their handcrafted all-natural soaps are made with organic ingredients, essential oils, and no harsh chemicals. Awesome! So they're not only great for your skin, but they're safe for the planet. And they don't just stop at soap. Apple Valley Natural Soap also carries a full line of natural skincare products, including shampoos, body butters, facial bars, and more. All designed to nourish your skin without synthetic ingredients. You can't beat that. That's just awesome. Whether you're hiking in the woods or just winding down after a long day, their products bring a little bit of nature right into your home. And the best part? By supporting Apple Valley Natural Soap through the Nature Wanderer, you're also supporting this podcast. Just head to the show notes and click on the link for Apple Valley Natural Soap. So go ahead, treat yourself and the environment to something better. Your skin and Mother Nature will thank you.